Welcome to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. I am Warren Munson, the host of the podcast, where founders, entrepreneurs, business leaders and experts from a variety of sectors are interviewed to explore the link between personal and business success. In line with Evolve's principles, we also look at the importance of personal development, accountability and collaborative support in the pursuit of meaningful success. Through the insights of our guests, as well as my own business journey, the aim is to inspire you, the listener, to become better in life and in business. Welcome to this week's episode. My guest today is Cas Paton, founder and CEO of OnBuy.com, the UK's most trusted online marketplace and one of the world's fastest growing marketplaces. Since OnBuy's inception in 2016, Cas has worked at the forefront of the business alongside his management team while serving as a figurehead and passionate believer in the company and all that it stands for. After taking significant risks to develop and launch the platform, the company has achieved extraordinary success, and for the past 3 years in a row it's experienced over 600% year-on-year growth and recently received a multi-million-pound investment to continue to scale up the business over the years ahead. Cas really is an incredible story of one man turning a business idea into something massively successful in a relatively short period of time and going through phenomenal growth as a result. Cas is honest in his story about some of the challenges that he has faced both as an individual and from a business perspective. This kind of growth is rare at the best of times, but the fact that Cas has managed this in a highly competitive minefield of e-commerce marketplaces, with his competitors being the likes of Amazon, makes it even more special. So today, Cas talks about the early challenges of OnBuy.
You open your doors, day one, we've got nothing to sell. So you're saying to your retailers, come and join OnBuy, we've got this amazing plan and it's going to be fantastic for you. And the retailers are saying, but you've got no customers. And you can't get any customers because you've got nothing to sell.
How he's managed to maintain focus on the business while seeking investment.
All founders love getting their businesses going. It's really exciting. You're involved in every single aspect. And then along comes investment. And depending on how smooth it goes and how desirable your product is to the investment world, it really dictates how much time you're going to spend fundraising.
And reveals the process behind creating some semblance of work-life balance.
I think it's taken me 15, 16 years to get to the point that I now am able to switch off.
There's lots going on at Evolve as we develop our services and launch our business festival for November. So if you want to know more about Evolve and all of the services that we offer, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter and be part of our community, then please do go to evolvemembers.com. But for now, let's get on with the show. Cas, welcome to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the podcast. I'm really intrigued to learn more about your story and the story of OnBuy. So I suppose we should start for our listeners there. You founded OnBuy in 2016. As I read, it's with just £80. So how did the concept for OnBuy come about and what were those early days like, Cas?
Yeah, let me just correct one little part of that. The business story started with £80. By the time I got to OnBuy, I actually invested £500,000 of my own money into getting that business moving. But you know what journalists are like. You know what journalists are like. Like, you tell them one story about, I started my first business at 21 with £80 and grew that to basically get OnBuy off the ground. And next minute it's £80 created OnBuy. So the way it goes. No, I mean, my story's, really a career towards OnBuy. It's not like I woke up one morning and went, hey, I've got this brilliant idea. Let's do this. Yeah. Let's do this thing. I worked as an e-commerce consultant. I was helping businesses to scale since I was around 14, 15. I was helping businesses to go online. And then after being in the military, I came out, I did my law degree. And while I was doing my law degree, I thought, this is so slow. This is so slow. So I set up my first business at 21. Had 27 staff by the time I came out of university. We were working in 9 countries, helping businesses to grow and scale as fast as possible. And part of that strategy was obviously marketplace. Used to tell businesses how to make the most of marketplace and everything that goes with growing e-commerce, reverse logistics like returns, tax and cross-border implications and all of these things. But marketplace was really, the centric piece of helping businesses to scale at fixed cost. And then after years of consulting businesses to make the most of Amazon and eBay and everyone else, I started to see that the marketplace landscape was changing, and that marketplaces, or many of them, won't say who, you can figure that out yourself. But many of those marketplaces more focused on retailing their own products than the marketplace products, and I found that my clients were playing constant cat and mouse. Which products are the next products to sell? And then they were losing their top lines to the marketplace. And I just decided enough's enough. I'm sure we can do something better. And that's where this whole thing started. Yeah.
Wow. So that was a big, brave decision then to take on the likes of eBay, Amazon, the other significant marketplaces out there. But that was the key thing. You knew you had a point of difference, not to compete with your sellers.
That was where it started. We knew we could do more for the customers down the line. Many of the retailers I was working with were getting to a point that they were saying, can't wait for the day we don't have to sell on X marketplace. And those decisions made me realize, hang on a minute, one of the other things that we saw was lots of retailers choosing to not list all of their lines on said marketplace. So as a consequence of that, I realized, hang on, if we fast forward like 10 years, are we going to find that these big marketplaces that have everything we want now having less because the retailers are holding back, and therefore, you fast forward to now, and that's already 5 years into this journey, the rise of big commerce, the rise of Shopify, huge scale up in terms of e-commerce businesses trying to not use marketplace and grow their own market share. And as a consequence of that, really it fueled, this move away from marketplace. And what OnBuy has done is he's sort of stood up and gone, you don't need to move away from marketplace. Marketplace is still a really, really good thing for customers. And it's a really good thing for retailers because they end up with fixed costs. It's just a fixed cost customer, fixed cost sale. You can balance it all into your, basic equations. The risk is on the marketplace, not the retailer. And if we're not competing with the retailer, then really it's that level playing field that helps drive transparency on both sides. So customers know when they spend £1 on OnBuy, it's £1 turnover for a retailer. And the retailer knows that we're not there to compete with them. And actually the ecosystem is just better.
And you become a true intermediary, and it's a real collaborative approach then, I suppose. Is that
exactly? We
correct?
say we're 100%. We say we're a partner to all retailers. And I think that's the difference, right? Partner means mutual. You've got to be mutual. There's an equilibrium between the two sides. We bring value, they bring value. And I think partner also means you're not really there to hurt each other's interests. And that's why I think we differentiate so well in the market.
So going back to that early days of OnBuy then, was there a point where you had a very successful business, you had 27 team members working with you? At some point, did you have to make the transition of letting that one dwindle, or did those people convert into OnBuy? How did you make the transition from one to other?
Yeah, I mean, this started in around 2012, and once we'd taken the decision that we were going to try and launch OnBuy, by the start of 2014, we already had amassed a bit of wealth in the business to support the growth of OnBuy, around £500,000, and we said there's going to be a period where we need to run both businesses. So we were running software development companies and consultancies, and then we came up with a plan, which was it's going to take 2.5 years to build the basic structure of OnBuy from the start of 2014. We didn't launch until November 16. So it's a long period of development to build, a platform that would resonate with retailers. There's a certain benchmark that's been created by companies that have been online for a quarter century and really had the infrastructure and cash to be able to build great product. And that means for us to be able to offer anything that's even remotely going to compete, there's already a benchmark. So 2.5 years development, which was done simultaneously to supporting other customers, and then a plan was launched to scale web development down and slowly move the team over to OnBuy. So when OnBuy really took control and we said, right, we're finished with web development, we're finished with helping other customers, we're going to do our own venture, and all of our customers moved on to new developers and everything, all in a nice, easy, friendly way. At that point, we had a team of 14 that were the founding sort of employees of OnBuy.
Wow. There must have been a moment, though, where that was just had to feel like a leap of faith.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
And when did that moment come? Was it the dwindling of the traditional, or was it before that or after that?
Yeah, I think there was a few times it came. One was, let's be clear, I started my business as a fairly modest guy from a fairly modest family. Middle class, but
Hmm.
probably lower middle to be fair. And um money did not come easily. So when I was the entrepreneurial guy that went out and wanted to start my own thing and was so desperate to get out there into the big wide world and always been a natural salesman or whatever. And then, to amass a significant wealth, and then to me, £500,000 to throw into a new venture is not something that everyone can just do like that. And I couldn't either. So once we get to that point to be able to do this, that was everything I'd worked for 10 years,
That was it. That was your
you know?
security blanket, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, so I made sure that the family was secure. We had a house, and we said this is going to be a big thing, and I had to let go of an income. I let go of a salary. I let go of all of that, and said, right, I'm going to do this. And for the next 2 years, I'm not going to have a salary. Not only am I going to put all of my savings into this, but I'm also not going to have a salary. And yeah, that first few years is incredibly hard. Imagine that you launch your business, and this is the difficulty of marketplace, very different to other businesses. So you launch your business, you've got 14 people, you say, this is what we're going to do. We know how we're going to make a difference. You open your doors on day one with a product that's taken you, more than 2.5 years to develop, and all of your savings, and you cut your salary to nothing. And then you say, I am going to make this the best e-commerce company on the planet. That's the goal. It's got the goal, draw the line in the sand. We've got several stages to get there, but you open your doors. Day one, we've got nothing to sell. So you're saying to your retailers, come and join OnBuy. We've got this amazing plan and it's going to be fantastic for you. And the retailers are saying, but you've got no customers. And you can't get any customers because you've got nothing to sell.
Got no product, have you? So, yeah.
So you're stuck in a catch-22 going, listen, this is a big thing. We're on your side. And like, well, you can be on my side, but you haven't got any customers. Is this worth my time? So it's those first 2 years are very, very, very nervy in the sense that you've got to deliver the true value, but to do that, you need the supply. I know I can get the demand, but I need the supply. And that's why many, many marketplaces quit and become retailers. And this is the tough game. If you can get through that barrier, which is almost impossible, then you might actually get somewhere. And that's exactly what we've been able to do. And we've been able to stay, true to our mission and our roots and our foundation, which is we're never gonna be a retailer. And I tell you what, if we weren't going to be a retailer, then we're never going to be a retailer, because
No.
that was tough.
And in that equation between, the customers, the clients, and the products, was there a moment of realization where you felt, yes, we've got traction? Because at that point, you must still have been burning cash and significant sums, and we'll come to fundraising and that discussion. But at what point, is there a point in time when you thought, we've got the right concept, we're going to become the best e-commerce company on the planet, I believe in it, I've invested everything into it, and actually I now feel we can achieve that?
Yeah, I think I used to call it the seesaw analogy. I guess it ties back to critical mass. So I used to say to my team when they joined us, look, OnBuy's a seesaw. Think of it like this. You've got to wait at one side, you've got to wait at the other side of the seesaw. And at the minute it's completely shifted. And that is a little bit about credibility, because what I used to say to my sales team was, retailers don't really want us at the minute. The seesaw is tipped completely one way. We really need their products because we need supply. But as we scale, as we grow, as we get more powerful for the customer, which is the ultimate goal, because retailers was really the solve the supply side, we need to do that first. So OnBuy was very, retailer centric in the first instance, naturally, because we need supply. And we will remain partners to those retailers, don't get me wrong. But there's a point where that seesaw would tip a little bit. And once it starts to tip, what's going to happen is we've got the customer. Customers are shopping with us in huge numbers because we add value to them. They like our service. They understand our product. They add what we bring to the table, which is transparency. And we look after our retailers and everything else. And we get them good deals, which is the consequence of having these partnerships. So whole thing works. And once this seesaw starts to tip, once you get to that point of equilibrium, the balance it's and you give it that little push, that's when everything can swing the other way. And when that happens, the difference is we have the customer, we can look after the customer, we still have the partners, but we're not having to fight to win retailers. There's a big difference. You're not trying to, you're not even in a position where you'd need to compromise the business, that you'd need to move to retail, that you'd need to do anything, because once that tips, this whole thing becomes a network effect. Significant onboarding of retailers, lots of product means lots more customers, and most importantly for us, more customers able to come back for their second, third, fourth, fifth purchase and find the things that they want, because there's no guarantee from first purchase where you came up for their first purchase that when they come back for something completely different that you'd have the product. So the supply side is still going to be a challenge for a number of years. But once that starts to tip, it will accelerate. And we went from onboarding around 80 retailers per month to 500 retailers per month, almost overnight. And my plan was accurate, and the whole team sort of said, "I think it tipped." Literally, my analogy was thrown back at me. I think it tipped. And then we had to slow down the onboarding of retailers because we weren't ready for the huge volume, and that was around February last year.
Okay. So
just before coronavirus,
yeah. Just before coronavirus hit.
Yeah.
And has it been, because, people joke that most forecasts show the kind of typical hockey stick, and most businesses don't do that. They go in plateaus. But has OnBuy been, I mean, from the outside, when you read the articles, you hear what's going on within the business, it feels like it's that hockey stick approach. Is that the case?
I guess relative to what kind of periods you're looking at, we do go through periods of plateaus, like inflection periods. We go through 3 or 4 months sometimes where it's like, okay, we're at a certain size. Let's not push anymore for the moment. Let's look in and make some, let's make sure we're ready and the teams are ready. We've gone from 14 people to almost 100 people in a really small space of time. You're talking like 15, 16 months. So that change requires training. You've got a culture to manage. You've got leadership and management to deal with, and plus an ever-growing platform solutions architecture to make things easier for both the retailers, the customers, and our team. So there's a constant evolution, and as a consequence, we do go through periods of flatline where we say, okay, let's take a few months just to look inwards. You can't keep constantly month on month growing. But the net of that is, year on year, constant growth. We've grown pretty consistently. And that growth will eventually become that little bit harder. There's no way you can maintain 600% forever. It's just not possible. No. But, to date, past 3 consecutive years, 600% growth year on year. And this year will probably be 300% as a guide. And then it will probably ballpark 200 for a while.
All becomes relative, doesn't it? When you're talking percentages,
absolutely.
The numbers get bigger and it gets harder. Yeah,
absolutely. You ballpark, you're going from 200 million to 400 million to 800 million. It's big. It's big numbers. Huge developments. And yeah, I mean, it's the hockey stick's definitely true. But with those, if you don't put those inflection periods in there, you really can't sustain that growth, and that's why it's really important to do that.
And what's been the biggest challenge of that phenomenal growth? If there was one thing when you look back now and that you would have done differently, what's been the biggest challenge through that growth period?
I don't know if it's that we would have done it differently, because I think you do what you do because you can do it at that time. And I think if I was to go back in time, would I have done things differently? Only if the situation was different. So if I went back in time now with the investment levels that we've got now, for example, and I was able to start again, I would do things differently. I would do things differently because my ultimate focus is the customer, not investors. And actually, sometimes those things don't align exactly, because you have to balance both sides of the equation. Sometimes you've got to show a healthy business to justify investment at a time that, if money wasn't an issue, you would do things maybe more patiently and over a different period. So yeah, if I had money, I would do things a little bit differently, and maybe some of the noise that we shouted about wouldn't have happened quite so soon,
Mm.
and a few other bits and pieces. But overall, I think, one of the things that the bits of feedback we get, at least from, the venture capital world, is this was a business no one thought would even be possible to launch in the UK. And OnBuy would have never received significant investment from a venture capital company. It any sooner than we did, because it's just not an opportunity anyone would have believed could happen. And that's great for me, because it means that there's certainly not any competition in the space doing what we've been able to do, because it costs too much money.
Yeah.
And there's no one there to want to do it. And plus, once OnBuy is launched and you've got the fair platform, and you've got the competitive fees, and you've got the structure, we don't really leave much room for anyone to follow in our footsteps. We found the gap that retailers want, that consumers need. I think with a perfect platform for the current market.
And how does it feel? Because you must have gone through with everybody. You probably got lots of support from family, friends, people within the business, but those early days must have been a lot of skepticism about what you were doing, and those kind of strange looks that you're never going to create a marketplace that competes with Amazon and all of those kind of things. And that tide must have turned now, particularly with the investors and the VCs and investment coming into the business. Was there a moment of self-doubt that you ever had, Cas?
I think if you spoke to anyone that knew me personally, they probably will tell you that I'm not one to stop when something is showing me an opportunity, or if I believe there's an opportunity. And no, I've believed in this, and I've never had a single doubt. There was one point I probably got close to a doubt around the investment piece. But that was more of a lack of experience on my part in raising money, and therefore understanding your investor. I kind of wasn't familiar with that, but we all go on our own learning journeys. The truth is, unless you've been a founder of a 200 million pound company before that's had to do these kind of things, how would you know? I mean, we're moving into territory that, there's not really that many people that have gone on those journeys, and you certainly don't have the resource to employ any of the people that have gone on those journeys. So you're learning again, and we could definitely be more efficient if we did it again, definitely. And but no, I absolutely knew that we could do this. I knew the business model was right, and I was never weighted by anybody else's negativity, because I just thought, well, if you're not with this idea, you'll just have to wait and see what happens. Let's talk again in a couple of years, and take it from there.
Great attitude and positivity, and obviously an individual that follows your gut feeling and intuition, and that's what's driven you to this point. The business the size it is now, is it still following your gut feeling and intuition, or because you put structure in it, has there been a transition to perhaps others making those critical decisions and less of your gut feeling and intuition coming into play?
No, I think that we are becoming more structured, which is probably it's definitely a good thing.
It's a
But
needed thing, isn't
it's
it?
a needed thing. You can't grow to this number without, structure.
Yeah.
But absolutely, the business has been structured in a way that, ultimately, my vision and my strategy around how we're going to do this has been employed, might have been refined in certain places,
Yeah.
definitely, with experience of new CCOs, CTOs, CFOs, CMOs, etc., brought into the business to add their experience and expertise. But absolutely, OnBuy's direction is being led from that initial vision. And I was in a strategy meeting last week with our new lead team after several months of their initial bedding in and learnings, and we all met. We went through everything they'd seen, learn all of their experience, my strategy. We put together a strategy for the next 3 years, and therefore, me still leading those conversations means that OnBuy is still getting the benefit of what I see as the future and the vision for customers, and very, very excited to see the next wave of this journey brought to life.
We've also dispelled the myth of the £80 startup and it's, you know, £500,000 self-funded investment. So put the record straight on that. But to get to where you are now, we've started to touch on it. You have gone through various investment rounds.
Hmm.
So, you know, and many entrepreneurial owner managed businesses, they get the concept, they get the idea, they can self-fund to a point, but they do stumble at that investment point. So what's the investment journey been like for you, and you know, how's it taken place? Have you done it in 3 or 4 different steps, or?
Yeah, I think, you know, the one thing, if there are any entrepreneurs thinking about raising money, listen to this. You know, raising money is all about doing it at the right time and not over raising. I think, you know, diluting yourself has to be a strategic play at the right time. So we got to a certain size. We used angels, which I was fortunate to meet along my own journey, and then brought them my idea. And I was backed for a while after my 500K was depleted, which, you know, doesn't take long in this space. And then we raised 2.1 million over quite a period of time, the next 2 years or something, from angels, roughly around 100K a month or something, to sustain the development of the business. And then it was time to go and get a venture capital investment, you know, solidify our journey and really, you know, the point of credibility. So we went out there, and I remember the first VC we sat down with, and they really, really liked it, but they just could not get their head around, what about Amazon? What about Amazon? What about Amazon? It's like, never mind Amazon. Like, you're not thinking about this in the same
Yeah.
way. You're being small-minded. Don't be small-minded. So, you know, the raising of money at the right times is really important. But sometimes it's market condition. You know, last year we raised our first VC money and closed it in January 2020 with Fuel Ventures. We went on to their follow-on fund, and then COVID hit, and all the investors ran away and said, we're not putting money into funds right now. And we were like, wow, this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be a problem. So we had to go out and raise money a slightly different way through Fuel's network. 3 months later, everybody ran back investing money in e-commerce because it took off. We'd missed that one. And then we quickly opened up our Series A in June and said, you know what, if the market loves e-commerce, well, look how fast we've grown. We've grown at, you know, ridiculous pace. And we did our Series A, which we raised around 5 million, and then, you know, rolled into 2021 with significant growth. And we've just closed a funding round now this week, actually. So
Congratulations.
so by the time this podcast comes out, we just closed a new round. Numbers to be revealed.
Okay.
So you know, very excited to watch this grow.
Watch this space. Find out what that number is. And when you know, talk to our clients and businesses I've been involved in where we've raised, you know, small amounts of funding, it can become a huge distraction, particularly for the founder. I mean, how have you found that? At times, have you felt like you're needing to focus purely on investment raising and not the business, or how have you found a balance? How have you managed that process?
Yeah, that's the worst bit for founders that I think is completely understated. How much time is actually going to be spent running the company? So, you know, there's no question that all founders love getting their businesses going. It's really exciting. You're involved in every single aspect. It's really good fun. You're connecting to new teams and new people. You're getting new talent, focusing on your business. And then along comes investment. And depending on how smooth it goes and how desirable your product is to the investment world, you know, it really dictates how much time you're going to spend fundraising. If you've got a unique product that's uniquely positioned and built revenue, and it's proven, and it's, you know, defensible, and you've been able to show a unique customer proposition, then realistically, if you've got that kind of a product, raising investment, as long as you've got the revenue and the right numbers to back it up, should be actually quite quick. And on the flip side of that, if you've got a product that really doesn't have a USP at that point, and all kinds of things like that, it gets harder and harder and harder. Now, you know, being completely candid, OnBuy, it is probably towards the hard end of that scale, because when you are trying to build a business, as I said at the start of this podcast, against companies that have had, say, 25 years to develop their product, and yours is still a baby compared to that, and you've got an arsenal of USPs to deliver yet that you know is going to make you difference. But before you can get to that true point of differentiation, All you've got is some key underlying foundation level points of differentiation. So the fact that we don't compete with retailers, that ultimately drives choice. The fact that we pay retailers the same day they make a sale. The 180-day buyer protection that we can deliver because of our unique, connection to PayPal. All of these things do create a point of difference. But how much of a difference? And that's where it's like, well, yeah, you do, but these other platforms have this and these other platforms have that. What about this? And that makes it incredibly challenging. She's like, well, that's the next part of the journey. Don't ask me, where my features for, that you would expect to see on OnBuy when we're doing 6 billion in sales or whatever,
Yeah.
And you've got to look at the now. And that means you're looking for an investor that understands, off the data that you generated, understands the way this is actually going and the underlying development of the product. And to be blunt, quite a lot of investors these in the VC world are not particularly risk taking. You think that they would be being an investor, but they do everything, absolutely everything possible to mitigate risk. They're not angels. Angels are different. An angel will take a risk. They see value. They can make a personal and emotional decision. I believe in this product, so I will do it. VCs don't do that. They're protecting other people's money. It's mandate. And the time spent raising funds can be quite substantial. Now, because of COVID last year, I raised money in January, I raised money in March, I raised money in June. I spent almost 7 months last year raising money. And then as I came into this year, I spent 3 months this year raising money. Got a bit easier. The numbers help.
The numbers help. The metrics now are there.
Yeah. But, to do that, it is incredibly challenging. So when we were doing, last January, we were doing £1 million a month in sales. And you jump forwards now and you're doing nearly 15 million a month in sales, it does get progressively easier.
Definitely. There's a good distinction there you've made between angel investors and the professional VCs. And the VCs, you're right, want the data, they want the metrics, don't they? They want to follow a trend and they want to put their money in at a point where they know that the data and the metrics are showing that growth is going to happen. Whereas your angel is going to take a punt on you and believe in you and get the emotive and think this is an investment and I believe in what the founder's about, and it's more about your personality and your belief being shared with them, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why our first VC backer, Fuel Ventures, was led by Mark Pearson, who was the founder of My Voucher Codes in the UK. He exited that business and then he launched Fuel Ventures. So for us, it meant that we were invested in by an entrepreneur. And that was the difference, right? It was other people's money, but he was making an entrepreneurial decision. Plus, you've got to think of the type of VC. This is what I meant about knowing your business. At the stage we were at, I was looking for a big VC. I wanted a name. But names aren't interested in seed. Names aren't interested until the business is on a growth trajectory and it's proven. They sometimes go off piece for the right, with the right portfolio company that they believe they can add instant value to or connect to other products in the portfolio and do really well. But really their mandate is to invest at a certain size, looking at certain numbers. And, working with Fuel, we're the first company that Fuel Ventures has ever backed 3 times. So it goes to show you how significant, the right backer, but also, I guess, the right portfolio company for them, where we've shown such tremendous growth. If you think that January last year, we were doing £1 million a month, and, this year, roughly 15 million a month, that's 15x in 15 months. That's insane.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the piece, isn't it? You're delivering on, they're providing you with the investment, you deliver, they're supporting you further, aren't they?
Yeah, and we've over delivered. These founders sit down and do a model, and I'm sure every founder's aware doing a financial model. And when you talk about your hockey stick, it's kind of a bit like, this is what I'm going to do my first year, this is what I'm going to do my second year, and then I don't really know after that. So let's just do a big line upwards. It's all going to work out, right?
We're off.
And that's what they do, and they just show the revenue coming in. They spend more money on marketing, and they go, it'll work somewhere in there. And that's normally how it's done. I take a different view to modeling. I try and keep things super, super conservative. And if I can sit down with the investors and say, look, I can 10x your money over 3 years because this is what I'm modeling. That's the way I originally took. Actually backfired on me, because then what the investors do, they're so used to seeing financial models that are so overinflated that they have to pull everything right down and stress test, as they call it, those models and say, well, what happens if the revenue doesn't make that? And what happens if this? And let's look at all the assumption lines and let's halve them, and then all of a sudden it's a different picture. So of course that happens to me as well, as
Yeah.
inevitable. But I wanted to live by my numbers. When we went ahead and when we look now and we just did our round and I shared the data on both our seed financial model and our Series A financial model, I'd already 2.5x the seed model and 2x the Series A model. So now
Wow.
when I went to my next investor and said, this is my current model, but look at what I do with these models, it added a lot of confidence.
It's confidence, credibility, and all of those kind of things, isn't it?
Yeah, but that takes a track record, and that's difficult. You know, you
Yeah.
can't get that from day one.
This really is difficult. One of the things I'm intrigued about is usually a very high growth tech based business would be based in a city. It'd be based in London, Birmingham, Manchester, but you're based down in Poole in Dorset, is where the
Hmm.
head office is. Why? What have you found the benefits in doing that are, and why did you end up being located down here on the south coast?
Well, I did my law degree in Bournemouth, so fell in love with coastal
Yeah,
coastal living. I mean, look, it's 2021, work life balance, right? I mean,
yeah,
if I finish work and I want to drive home past the ocean, that's the way it is now. And actually, do you know what? COVID's made that even easier. We've got
yeah,
50% of our team is not based in Poole.
yeah,
We've opened, or we're in the middle of opening an office in Manchester, which is actually where I'm from. So we've got the tech hub and the tech catchment, but we've already moved to many of our roles. Not all. Some are required to be on site for various reasons, but many of our roles are remote as well as office. The rest are mostly hybrid, and there's only infrastructure type roles that are needed in the office for various reasons, but it's meant that it's irrelevant where we're based, and it's more relevant what tech, what expertise we have in the business. And yeah, I mean, it's natural in the coming few years that we may end up with an office in London as well, but then it's also natural we're probably going to end up with one in the USA somewhere. So it's I don't think that's hindered us in any way.
and clearly it hasn't. And around that kind of, has the pandemic changed your own ways of thinking about how you're building the team and that hybrid way of working? Before, do you think you'd have built it in more of a traditional, sort of manner with some perhaps hubs around the country but very much office space, or were you always thinking that more hybrid way?
No, I don't think we were always thinking quite so hybrid. We always, part of being diverse and inclusive and trying to have that, equality and equity piece in the business has always led us to consider hybrid roles, part-time, remote working for various candidates. So since we started the business, since I, literally my personal life is extremely complicated. I co-locate between Poole and Manchester, between what will be the Manchester office and Poole. I'm basically a single dad half of the time when I'm in Poole, so I have my son, and I do the school pickups and the when there's no childcare, it's me that has to deal with those challenges. So as a CEO dad, I was already very much on that side of the equation. It was already more towards the modern way of working, but COVID accelerated a number of things. So even though I was supportive of hybrid and I was supportive of flexi time, and that's always been part of our policy, the true remote working never really occurred to me in quite the same way. We did have a couple of remote workers because they were key talent in certain roles, but now, after COVID, I think it was more of an infrastructure thing. We didn't have the infrastructure to support it, the VPNs, the remote access, and I guess we sort of thought, well, we'll deal with this one day and we'll be even more remote orientated. But then COVID changed everything, and we had to do it now. There was no option. Everybody
Yeah.
had to work from home. So yeah, I mean, I think it accelerated where we were already heading.
Yeah, and I was gonna touch on, but maybe the answer is that point of flexibility is, a lot of businesses right now are finding it hard to recruit, whatever sector you're in. I mean, there's clearly some sectors that are really struggling, but I read somewhere you've got at least 33 vacancies right now for different
Hmm.
roles, and that growth. And I suppose with the additional investment coming in, that's to boost the structure and build the team further. Is recruitment a real challenge for you now? And if not, how are you overcoming the recruitment challenges?
There's always some challenges in recruitment. There's always going to be, we use agencies, we have in-house recruitment, we mix and match depending on what the role is, and there's always going to be some challenges because as the market evolves, there's shortages in certain types of candidates. There's huge demand for certain roles at any given time, and COVID has accelerated tech and e-commerce, which makes it brings with it its own challenges, getting devs and DevOps and whatnot. But the good thing for us, I guess, is we're very fortunate that the business has started to create more noise, more impact, more awareness, and as that happens, recruitment does get a little bit easier. Candidates are more drawn to the potential, the interest, the excitement. It is exciting business to work for. I mean, to be able to say, I was there when OnBuy did X or became this, and we grew from that to that. We were on a call this morning with one of our team who has now been with us for 4 years, and I surprised her on the call with the whole company this morning and said, come and tell everyone what it's been like. She was a bit embarrassed, but and she was able to say, well, when I joined, we were just in this little glass office here, and now we had to buy downstairs, and we had to, do this, and it's grown from that to this. So, we got those stories in the office witnessing this immense scale. And that's brilliant to have those core founding employees witnessing the change, and then each new employee that comes in is going on their own growth journey with OnBuy. So I love it. I think that I love the fact that we're resonating with more and more key people, and it's helped us to get some top talent into OnBuy this year as well. Significant C-suite that we've brought on board now, and it's not just with the C team, but also lots of new lead managers, new skill sets, new experts. We brought in business intelligence, data scientists. It's great.
Going back to one of our earlier discussions during the course of this conversation, it was that, your passion, your belief, your strategy. How do you induct that in those new people when they come on board? Because there'll be some which you've got a real touch point with, your senior people joining, and some, I suppose, will just get immersed in the culture just because there's been people that have been there for 4 years. But how do you because that must be one of the biggest fears that you have, is that you start to become a bit corporate, a bit like another, and you lose this kind of focus, this passion and belief that you clearly have, Cas, and what OnBuy is.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay connected to the team as much as possible. And luckily, with 90 something employees, it's still quite easy to do that. And Teams and video has made that also a lot easier than it would have been if we were even 10 years younger and, trying to round up 90 people to do a weekly catch up would be so much harder. So I make sure that every couple of weeks, as a minimum, the whole company is on a video chat where I just give updates from around the business, the growth, the drive, try and connect with everyone. And then I invite, different people from the business to bring us updates that have happened in their team, try and get everyone on board. So even, even teams that never talk during the day are aware of what is going on, where the journey is.
Brilliant.
After introducing our new strategy as well, which we did this week, we've started writing it up. The operational plan that will be drawn off the back of that strategy will actually involve every single employee at OnBuy. So we will sit down, we will go, right, this is our strategy that will be presented to the whole company so everyone can see and what it means and why and how it connects. But then each team will be invited to come in with their managers, with their line managers, and myself and other key people who work on that strategy, and actually sit down and go, what does this mean to you? What opportunities have you seen? Where are the challenges? Where are the walls? Let's prioritize, let's plan. I want every single team member at OnBuy to be part of the next, wave of growth and beyond, so that everybody knows that they're all invited to share how they believe OnBuy should be driven, and they can all feel connected to it. So that is how we're going to achieve the next wave of growth.
Communication. It is everything, isn't it? And sharing and breaking it down into smaller groups typically does work, doesn't it? And you having that touch point, I can see that. As we start to wrap up the conversation, you've alluded to, complex personal life. I mean, what has the effect of you being entrepreneurial, you going through the journey that you have had on your kind of personal family life?
I think it's very hard for people like me to switch off. So I've found that over the years incredibly challenging. I think it's taken me 15, 16 years to get to the point that I now am able to switch off. You know, if you go back to when I was much younger, I never stopped working. I
Yeah.
worked all the time. I literally did not stop. If I went out for dinner, I was doing emails on my phone. If I went on a holiday, I was working the entire holiday. There was no switch off. It was
No.
constantly on. And I think what happens is you have children, you grow up a bit, you learn a lot, and you realize how you can be more efficient. And actually, do you know what? All of this work that I'm doing, I'm never switching off, but am I actually getting more done, or is it just poor prioritization? Because, and some of these tasks that I'm doing, can someone else do this? Because
Mm.
am I the best person to be doing this? Is there value in trying to make sure that what I do, I'm 100% not tired because I'm doing everything? And can we get more out of this? And it's part of that evolutionary process. So there's a lot of young founders, or young's the wrong word, inexperienced founders that, you know, will be starting businesses now, and you know, they're the ones that the employees will be saying, you know, it doesn't switch off, it's a lot of pressure, it's really fast, and it's being vented from founders and whatnot. And actually, you know, part of being experienced in having businesses and running businesses is being able to know where the pressure should go, including on yourself, and,
Mm.
and managing that. And I found a really good equilibrium that I can remain extremely focused on work, still do a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but not push that pressure downwards, manage it really carefully, not carry it into the weekends. I can still take time with the family. I can go on holiday and switch off. But then I'll also argue that also comes with size, because once you get to a
Mm.
certain size, you have more people. So it's a very difficult balance. Um, but you know, I saw recently, you know, on LinkedIn and the news on the BBC saying, you know, many employees suggesting that their bosses shouldn't be emailing outside of hours. And I put that to one side, and then I read all of the other stories about how employees should be more flexy and part time and work around employees' timings. And I think, which one? Because
Yeah.
actually, when I work with my team, I say to them, look, there are days that I have to go and get my son from school. There are days that I don't have childcare, and he'll come, I'll go and get him from school, take him home, and I'll have a bit of time with him. And then I'll work in the evening and might be working completely different hours. So the kind of culture I try to instill in OnBuy is, if you get an email, well, why are you looking at your emails if you're not working? Look at your emails on your working time. Don't put email on your phone if you can't handle that. You're an adult. You
Yeah.
know, don't put emails on your phone. Don't put Teams on your phone if that's a problem for you. If that beep or that buzz is a problem, don't put it on your phone. I don't want anyone to work their non-contracted hours unless it's a company emergency, which is fair. And then, you know, and we've never had one, to be fair. And then, as far as we're concerned, when I email, that's my work life balance. That's my,
Yeah.
you know, that's me being able to do.
Don't stop me doing it because I
Yeah,
need to do it. Yeah, that's my
exactly.
rhythm. Yeah.
And I'm with that with my team as well. I'm like, look, if you've got a flex time contract, that means that you want to do this time till this time, and maybe customer service work until 8 p.m. or whatever it is. That's your working pattern. Don't not send the email because it's not somebody else's working pattern. What happens when OnBuy becomes a global company and there's different time zones, which we're right on the cusp of doing? So it's better to build the culture, which is just don't have Teams on your phone. No one is asking you to check it. Don't have emails on your phone. No one's asking you to check it. So unless you can deal with it and you're comfortable silencing it, muting it, not checking it, or I like to glance at it. I don't have to react to it. Some people get an email, they have to
Mm.
react to it. Well, then it's a management thing to work with our team and say, look, an email doesn't mean you need to do anything. Um, Otherwise, what do you do in a global company? You go, I need to email this person. Ooh, what time is it there? I can't
Yeah.
send this email.
I can't
So
do that. I can't do
yeah,
this. Yeah.
so it's more about building into your culture that, you know, you can be that way. And I think one of the things I try to do is lead that from the top, because my life requires that flexi time,
Yeah.
because I need to work around those things to have a better life with my children and my partner. It means that things can be, you know, balanced better. Um, but yeah, I think it's an experience learning.
Yeah, and I think some founders, some owners, business owners get there very quickly. It took me a long time. I'm not sure I'm always there 100% of the time right now, but it's a journey, isn't it? And I learned that I
Mhm.
just needed to be present in the moment. Don't get too hung up
Yeah.
about whether with the time I was working or the time I wasn't, but if I was with Michaela and the kids, or doing something else I love, being on my bike or doing something else I love, I just needed to make sure I was being present in the moment and not
Agree.
distracted. And
It's
then you
too
find,
easy. It's too easy. Yeah.
yeah, and then you find your own rhythm, don't you? And you find your own pattern, and that's what you've got to work to. But it takes time to do it. So, and it takes courage to do it as well. So, where are you gonna be 5 years from now? So, what's the plan, Kaz? If you could have that kind of forward-thinking kind of place, what would you want OnBuy to be in 5 years' time, and where would you be personally?
Well, if I tell you our vision statement, which is quite simple, it's to be the best for every customer, best choice for every customer everywhere. And what does that mean, best choice? And I think the most well-rounded solution, option, choice, whether that's the best choice out of all the other marketplaces, whether it means that we're delivering the best choice for the customer on the platform amongst a number of retailers, we want to be the best choice in the future. That is our vision statement. And how do we get there? Oh, there's a lot to do. We're catching up on some of the big boys before we start, really delivering the solutions that we believe will add significant value to the customer. But we want to, retain customers. We want customers to feel valued. We want to be driving loyalty with our customers. So we want them to be rewarded for that. We want to really build a solution that rewards our customers for their loyalty rather than charging for their loyalty like other marketplaces might do. And then bringing into that, the expectation around what we call standardized service, making sure a customer knows when they come on what kind of service level they expect, because they're buying from lots of different retailers with lots of different transit times. There's lots of moving parts, but if we can get to where we believe we can, which is delivering that best choice to the customer, so a customer goes, look, I want to buy a product. Now, when they land on the website, being able to choose what's important to the customer. So instead of the marketplace dictating what's important to the customer and pre-choosing that listing and saying, this is the one, and here's some others, trying to get to a point that the customer can say, what matters to me is speed. What matters to me is price. Or where it comes from. I only want to buy from, and this gives the opportunity for the customer to have full control on OnBuy. You want to wait a little bit longer, but it's cheaper, that's your choice. You want it tomorrow and it's a bit more expensive, then that's your choice. And we're trying to give the best choice for the customers so you can have that decision. Now, that means we want to get products to you same day. It makes, in some cases, same hour, or 3 weeks, because you want to save some money and you want to get it from somewhere else. And that gives you all of the choice. So we really want to be that ecosystem that's fair to our retailers, not just saying this is a race to the bottom on price because that's all we care about. But actually, customers are far more complex than that. It's not always about price. Otherwise, how's Deliveroo and whatnot shot through the roof if you're paying almost twice as much for your McDonald's? It's not always just about price, and that's something that we can really build into the business.
Brilliant. Great. And last question, always ask it as we come to the end of the podcast. What's your personal definition of success, Kaz?
I think it's creating something that is not easy to be taken away. And for me, my success has never been, I always said to people, money is a byproduct of success. It was never always just, obviously, everybody needs to be comfortable. But money was really the byproduct. It's always more than that. How can we create a legacy? That's success. How can we do greater good and have the free capital to be able to do, sustainable projects and invest in charities? And to me, it's about legacy. How do I make a real dent in the space that I can use to a good, a good advantage and help the wider community and whatnot. So, yeah, I think I'm trying to make a real impact.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kaz. And you're certainly starting to do that. And I definitely believe with that, if you focus on the money doesn't come. If you focus on servicing your clients, creating something different, being unique in your marketplace, in your delivery of service or product, whatever it may be, then the money and the success flows as a consequence, doesn't it? But I'm a real believer, focus on the money, and the money probably doesn't inevitably come.
Yeah, a good thing there, WhatsApp. Look at WhatsApp. So WhatsApp for years of development had no revenue, none. And then they sold for $19 billion.
Yeah. Wow. So Cas, if people want to find out more about you, more about OnBuy, where can they go?
Sellers, onbuy.com/sell. Customers, check out onbuy.com. And if you want to touch with me, it's LinkedIn and search for Cas Paton. I'm very active on LinkedIn, lots of updates on there. So it's a good place to connect.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cas. You've been a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you.
Having not spent any time or spoken to Cas before that discussion, I was just astounded by his focus, passion and belief in all that he does, and his belief in OnBuy and what he wants it to become. OnBuy's continued growth until this point has been truly remarkable, and it's got to be testament to Cas's determination, single-mindedness and confidence. You really have to admire his level of self-belief, and I think it's a great lesson for any startup, and that if you truly believe in whatever it is you're selling and the mission you set out to achieve, and stick to those founding values and principles that you have, you do your chances of a long-term success a great deal of good. Thank you for listening, and if you do want to learn more about Evolve, then please do go to evolvemembers.com. You can register there for our weekly insights and newsletter, as well as learn about the services that we offer at Evolve, including our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, courses for teams, as well as our lovely co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole. And if you are a business leader in Dorset and Hampshire, then I'm really excited to be able to say that through the Dorset LEP and the Solent LEP, we have some fully funded peer network and peer group programs that we can offer to you. So if you want to learn more, again, go to the website or please call the team. I really do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if so, please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing and listening to future episodes. Thank you for listening.